and I suppose I'm actually going to, it is in some sense a form of a conversation with the ambassador and the colonel in that regard. So I'm looking forward to some questions on this. You've been notified. And I'm just going to really pick out some phrases for everyone to think about, and then perhaps we can discuss that during our Q&A. Now, I'm hoping here to evoke the spirit of DACC, because this is what DACC was talking about in his book Allies in the Bind. We've already talked about Brisbane as the major submarine centre hub during the Pacific War. DACC's book was not simply military operations, it was about Australian foreign affairs and military strategy and the relationship between the two. And our thinking in some sense was a basic agreement in terms of the way that we saw that period. I think that our particular concerns, our historiographical concerns at that time, was that a lot of military history didn't really sort of appreciate that big picture view and how strategy, policy in some ways connected to the operations. What the Allies in Bind is really about is a synergy of the diplomatic, the political and the military. And the work is a framework of comprehension, to be able to, in some sense, give people that big picture on everything that we've been talking about in the last 2 days. The book, also in terms of the synergy, was also around the objective sort of structural thinking, but also around the personalities and looking at the connection there. So that General MacArthur is a particular figure in the book, inescapably so. And I think the main point that sort of DACC is making is that the Australians had their war objectives, the Americans had their war objectives, the Dutch had their war objectives, and we heard a little more about that earlier. And in that mix was also personalities, the personalities of MacArthur, and many of, pretty well most of you I think would know about the reputation, the profile in Australian minds of MacArthur in terms of, you know, the stories around the type of person he was. Heard yesterday that he had formed his own particular intelligence unit, you know, and so there is a particular personal approach, but also a structural type of thinking that brought things together. What DACC's book particularly discusses is different players that were involved. On the Dutch side, Van Wolk and Van der Plas. But on the Australian side, it was around the policy decisions of the Foreign Minister, or the Minister for External Affairs, Everett, and the Prime Minister, Ben Chifrey. And in that, and it's already been mentioned, is, I think, probably the central point that's been made is around what I would phrase as the big power versus small power syndrome. But it's something that can be debated, but certainly the narrative that Australians have in their history is that MacArthur was very, very firm and perhaps controlling in terms of the relationships in the Allies cooperation. So there was never a uniform policy, and that's really my conclusion. And you're all very silent, so I hope I haven't stepped on too many toes.